Hi, boys and girls. It's Miss Bissell. We are continuing our topic 15 today. We're going to work on lesson 15-2. It actually piggybacks on what we did yesterday with numerical patterns. So if you will flip in your book to page 598, pause me if you need to get there, and we are looking at the essential question. So again, we're dealing with identifying relationships today between patterns. Okay, so we're just going to jump right in. So at the end of the day, you need to be able to answer, how can you identify relationships between patterns? All right, let's start with the Solvent Share on page 597. So during summer vacation, Julie reads 45 pages each day. Her brother Brett read 15 pages each day. Complete the tables to show how many pages each of them read after 5 days. What relationship do you notice between the terms in the pattern? All right, so I see a couple things we need to talk about. Yesterday we worked on what terms are. We talked about a pattern. We talked about relationships. So all that was probably some new vocabulary. The actual tables have been set up for Julie and Brett. So we've got Julie starting with her 45 pages. We have Brett starting with his 15. All right. Now, let's take a look at this. Her brother read 15 each day. She reads 45. So what we need to do is we need to generate the pattern from day 1 to 2 to 3 all the way to 5. So Julie started with 45 pages. I'm just going to use this area for my scratch work. So she's reading 45 a day. So that means we need to add another 45. 5 and 5 is 10. 4 and 4 is 8 plus 1, 90. So at the end of day 2, Julie has read 90 pages. All right, we're going to add 45 to 90. All right, 9 plus 4 is 13. So at the end of day 3, Julie's read 135 pages. All right, we're going to add another 45 because that is what she reads every day. All right, let's see, what did I just do wrong? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 180. And the last day, we're going to add another 45. All right, so Julie finishes up at the end of day 5 with 225 days. So each of these weeks is a term in the pattern, and we're adding 45 to the previous day or the previous term. Here's my scratch work. All right, I'm better with 15s. I can do that in my head. So Brett started with 15. He reads 15 a day. So 15 plus 15 is 30. So end of day 2, he's read 30. Add 15 to 30, we get 45. So at the end of day 3, 45 pages. We add 15 to 45, we get 60. We add 15 to 60 to get 75. So at the end of the 5-day period, Julie has read 225 pages and Brett has read 75. All right, so we've completed the tables. That was our first step, to show how many of them read after 5 days. Now, we are looking for a relationship between the terms in each pattern. So we want to look at those corresponding terms. So week 1 of Julie's table to week 1 of Brett's table would be corresponding terms. And I noticed Julie read 45 pages and Brett read 15. All right. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to make a little T-chart here. I think you'll see it real easy right here. This is going to be Julie. This is going to be Brett. So the first set of terms on day 1, Julie read 45, Brett read 15. All right. Day 2, Julie read 90, Brett read 30. Day 3, we have 135 compared to 45. Day 4, we have 180 for Julie, 60 for Brett. And the last corresponding terms are day 5. Julie read 225 pages, Brett 75. So I'm looking right here, and I noticed something is going on. If Brett read 15 and Julie read 45, you know what? I know by counting by 15 that 15 times 3 is 45. All right. So what I see is that Julie read 3 times as many pages as Brett, at least for day 1. Day 2, you know what? I know that 30 times 3 is 90. So I'm noticing something might be shaping up here. So on the second terms, Julie's still reading 3 times as many as Brett. All right, 45 times 3. Get this out over here. 135. So what I'm seeing is if this rule applies to each term in the pattern, then I know I found the relationship between the amount of pages that Julie and Brett read. Let's try the next one. 60 times 3. Yep, 6 times 3 is 18, so 60 times 3 is 180. And 75 times 3, 75 times 2 is 150. Another 75 would take it to 225. So what I see going on is this. I'm going to just make my space right here to answer. What I see the relationship is, I see that Julie reads 3 times. I'm going to write it out. 3 times as many pages as Brett each day. Now, I could turn it around and talk about Brett, and if Julie reads 3 times as many, then what happens with Brett is we would need to write about Brett reads 1/3. For every 3 pages, he's reading 1, right? So we can write that as a fraction. We haven't done fractions yet, so I know this will be a little harder to understand, but Brett reads 1/3 the number of pages as Julie does. Okay? This right here would not be hard for you to see, but maybe the 1/3 is because we haven't done fractions yet in 5th grade. All right, now we are going to continue with the reasoning. Now that we have worked through the numerical patterns and we've identified the relationship, all right, the rule that helped us to complete each table, I didn't really focus too much on it. The girl reminded us of it. But if Julie read 45 pages, then isn't her rule going to be add 45 to each term? And if Brett reads 15 pages a day, the rule for Brett is going to be read 15 or plus 15 from the previous day, the previous term. Yesterday's problems, what was happening was the rule was consistent for the 2 that we were comparing. All right, if it was savings, the 2 children were saving the same amount each week. All right, let's look back at the reasoning problem. Explain why this relationship exists between terms. So why is it that Julie reads 3 times as many pages as Brett each day? All right, well, it's because at the end of each day, when we compare the like terms, the number of total pages that Julie reads is 3 times what Brett read, right? All right. So that's kind of our little explanation. I'm not going to have you write that down. All right, let's look at the next page. All right, if you watch the visual learning video on the Get Help button with the Practice Buddy, the video should be this particular problem being worked out. So I really don't want to work it out too much. We can just look through it real quick. But Jack's training for a race. Each week, he runs 30 miles. And he bikes 120 miles. He created a table to record his progress. How many total miles will he run and bike after 5 weeks? And then again, that same question. Can you identify any relationship between the miles run and the miles biked? And the 5th grade helper reminds us that you can use the rules add 30 and add 120 to help you complete the table. All right, so the table is done right here. The biking is here. The running is on the left side. The running rule is you add 30 each week. The biking rule is you add 120 miles each week. So that's how this table was developed. Started with 30, started with 120. Those were given up to us in the scenario. Then we added each week and finished up at the 5th week. All right, and then comparing the corresponding terms. So what somebody noticed, and if you take off the zeros, I know 3 times 4 is 12. So isn't 30 times 4 going to be 120? So I noticed that that's true. 6 times 4, is that 24? It is. So 60 times 4 is going to equal 240. So they found the pattern to be, you take the total number of miles run and multiply it by 4 to get the total number of miles that were biked. Okay, so what's happening here? The relationship between the corresponding terms, 3120, 6240, 9360, 120, 480, and 150, 600, the relationship between those corresponding terms is that the total number of miles biked is always 4 times the miles run. Okay? All right. Let's do one more example together. I like this one. We're dealing with Maria and Henry. They are each starting a savings account. Maria puts $250 into her account each month. Henry puts $125. The question is, how much money will each of them have saved after 6 months? So let's go over here and work on our table and make sure we look for our relationship between our corresponding terms. So week 1, we know that Maria starts with $250, and we know Henry starts with $125. All right, we know that they save that same amount each month. So the rule is for Maria, I'm just going to pop it up above her. Her rule is to add $250 the previous week or the previous term. For Henry, it's add $125. I could write the word add, but plus it means add to me. All right, so if I add $250 to $250, Maria at the end of week 2 has saved $500. I'm going to add $250 to $500 at the end of week 3, $750. I'm going to add $250 to $750 at the end of week 4, $1,000. If we add $250 to $1,000, we get $1,250. And if I add $250 to $1,250, we get $1,500. All right, we finished up Maria. Let's work on Henry. 125 is what we add each time. So the end of week 2, we get $250. The end of week 3, we're going to add $125 to $250. That's going to be $375. We add $125 to $375. That's going to give us $500. We add $125 to $500. We get $625. And if we add $125 to $625, we get $750. All right. So we are supposed to tell how much each of them saved. So at the end of 6 weeks, Maria has saved $1,500. And Henry has saved $750. So we've got our table. Right here is what we're looking at, right? How much they saved after 6 months. All right, now we're going to dig in and look at the relationship between the total amount Maria has saved each month and the total that Henry has saved. So we're looking at a relationship between the corresponding terms. All right, so what I know, Henry had 125, Maria had 250. So wait a minute, 125 doubled is 250. Maybe times 2. Maybe Maria earns twice as much as Henry, or Henry earns half as much as Maria. All right, 250. If we double 250, do we get 500? Yep. All right. If we double 375, do we get 750? And we do. So we're doubling. Times 2 is doubling. 500 times 2 is 1,000. 625 times 2 is 1,250. And 750 times 2 is 1,500. So I think I've located right here what the relationship is. So I'm going to say that the total amount that Maria has saved is always twice as much as the amount Henry has saved. So the total amount Maria has saved is always, we could say 2 times, well, I should write it out, shouldn't I? We could say 2 times. We could replace 2 times with twice as much as Henry has saved. All right, now read that and make sure that makes sense. The total amount Maria has saved is always 2 times as much as Henry has saved, or we could say twice as much. Now, another way we could write it, and this requires you knowing fractions, isn't it true then that Henry has, at the end of every month, has half as much as Maria? All right, so 1/2 if we're talking about Henry first. All right, now I like the next question. If Maria and Henry continue saving this way for a full year, that means following this pattern, how much more will Maria have saved than Henry? All right, that is indicative that we're going to have to do some subtracting. But first of all, we need to get to a full year, don't we? All right, now I'll give you a little tip. They start out with 250, and that's the pattern. They start here with 125, and that is the pattern. So if I take how much they save, each child saves at 6 months, and I double it, in 6 times 2 going to give us 12 months, then this is a short way that I can get to how much they will have saved at the end of the year. So 1,500 doubled, that means times 2, or you could add 1,500 and 1,500. That gives us 3,000. 750 doubled. If you add it to itself, 750 plus 750, you get 1,500. If you want to use multiplication, then you could take 750 times 2. Now, I just was looking at this and I got excited because I noticed that 3,000 is twice as much as 1,500. So I still have that relationship of Maria saving twice as much as Henry. So I know that I am on a good path here. So let's look at what the question is, though. The question doesn't want to know how much they saved in 12 months. We had to figure that out in order to answer the question. So if they save this way for a full year, that's where they would end up. How much more will Maria have saved than Henry? So Maria saved 3,000. We put a little M for Maria beside it. Henry saved 1,500. So we would subtract to find the difference. All right. I get $1,500 for my answer here. So what that means is at the end of 12 months, I guess I better write my answer, and I'm going to have to write small, aren't I? At the end of 12 months, Maria will have saved, oh no, 1,500 more than Henry. Okay. So sometimes they might want to know, a good question might be at the end of 12 months, how much did Maria and Henry save together? And wouldn't we then add their amounts? So be careful because you're going to have questions to answer. So you're going to have to read closely. This one was, how much more will Maria have saved than Henry? Okay. So I think we've done enough questions. We have filled out tables. We've looked at corresponding terms. Okay, this table's together. This one that we did, the tables were separated, but we still compared them. Actually, I actually joined them, didn't I? Okay, and then we talked about looking for those patterns. So your essential question was, how can you identify relationship between patterns? So first of all, you have to find the rule that applies to each of your scenarios. You have to create the pattern in the data tables, and then you have to figure out how do you get from one corresponding term in the data table to the other, okay? And so you have a couple examples, 3. You've got Maria and Henry savings. You've got the race where he ran and biked. And then you've got the summer vacation reading scenario. So you have a practice buddy to complete for lesson 15-2. So make sure you do your best. Just a reminder, you can do the practice buddy again. If you don't like your grade, or you feel like maybe you missed one because you read a question wrong and the grade is not indicative of your knowledge of the math concept, then by all means, do it again. The practice buddies do not have that many problems, so they don't take long. You should have a sheet of paper out while you're working through the practice buddy, so if you have to re-enter your information, it should go pretty quickly if you've got it out on paper. And then your lesson 15-2 practice buddy notes should be clicked in behind the math work section of your binder. Right? All right. So you guys have a great day. Don't forget, when you finish with your practice buddy, you should be doing 2 weekly review problems a day. Those are your spiral reviews. Make sure you're working neatly and showing all your work. All right. Have a great day, and I will see you guys tomorrow.